Environment and climate change. Canada has released its 2025 hurricane outlook. CTV's Scott Hurst joins us live with the details. Scott, what are Canadian forecasters predicting for the Atlantic hurricane season?
Jamie, good morning. This is, of course, of particular concern for our friends in the Maritimes. Atlantic Canada is an area specifically that is vulnerable to these types of storms. Now, hurricane season officially begins June 1st, so just a little bit more than a week away, which is why this information is coming out now, along with the advice to get prepared, to make a plan and ensure you have the necessary supplies. Now, the month of September is peak hurricane month. The overall prediction for North America as a whole is a 60% chance of an above normal season. American forecasters are expecting 13 to 19 named storms, 6 to 10 hurricanes overall, including 3 to 5 significant storms. That is a Category 3 or higher. What does this mean specifically for Canada? According to the Canadian Hurricane Center, about 30 to 40% of storms on average that form in the Atlantic find their way into the zone covered under the Canadian Hurricane Center, with about 2 to 4 hurricanes or tropical storms that typically enter the Canadian response zone on a typical year. Now, the Canadian Hurricane Center said last year it tracked significant impact from several storms, but one specifically that entered the response zone as a tropical system, and that was Ernesto in August. Now, Jamie, a little bit of a side note right here. If you're interested in what the name of these storms will be, we do have a list of that, including the first 4 that we do know. The names will be Andrea, Barry, Chantal, and Dexter. Those will be the first 4 names of hurricanes that you'll see when they form.
Well, are funding cuts in the U.S. to the National Weather Service a concern at all north of the border?
Jamie, as you point out, this forecast comes at a time of significant cutbacks from the Trump administration and the controversial agency run by Elon Musk that is known as DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. Right now, nearly 900 employees, more than 7% of NOAA's workforce, they've been cut. That is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. That's led to protests across the U.S. and critics arguing these cuts will be felt when residents need it most. A lot of the data that forecasters on this side of the border use and rely on comes from these agencies south of the border. Still, leadership at the National Hurricane Center, when they came out with their forecast yesterday, said they have the resources that are needed, and the Hurricane Center itself is fully staffed. And they go on to argue that hurricane hunters are ready to go, and that the agency doesn't specifically rely on one single method, Jamie, to gather all the data that they need. But there is concern, particularly south of the border, that these cuts could have an impact, and that is a lot of what forecasters on this side of the border do rely on.
That's CTV's Scott Hurst. Thanks for that report.
Thanks, Jamie.